ASUS already paved the way for dual-screen laptops with last year's ScreenPad, but now it's taking the concept to another level with the Zenbook Pro Duo. It's a powerful 15-inch workstation with a huge secondary display that spans the entire width of the machine. ASUS calls this the ScreenPad Plus. Instead of being a tiny display tucked underneath the touchpad like the original ScreenPad, it's more like having a fully functional second monitor right on your laptop. The experience isn't quite perfect yet, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's clear that ASUS has thought about how consumers could use an alternate display like this. And at the very least, it's miles ahead of Apple's Touch Bar. The ScreenPad Plus measures 14 inches across diagonally, but it's just under 4 inches tall. As you'd expect, it also has an odd resolution with those dimensions, 3840 by 1100 pixels. It's basically a 4K screen cut in half. That's a bit of an awkward arrangement, but it suits the ScreenPad Plus's secondary status just fine. You can open up 3 apps side by side. It's just tall enough to get a decent view of Slack conversations and Spotify's interface. The ScreenPad Plus acts just like a second desktop monitor. You just drag the mouse down to interact with it. You can drag down apps and arrange them as you'd like, or you can hit a button to swap everything across the 2 screens. I'm used to running multiple desktop monitors, so moving between the 2 screens felt pretty natural. If you're mainly used to running a single screen though, it might take a bit of getting used to. Both of the Zenbook Pro's displays offer touchscreens, but I found that feature most useful on the ScreenPad Plus, where I could actually switch tracks in Spotify or hop to a Slack chat pretty quickly. The wide secondary screen is also useful for spreading out toolbars and timelines in media editing apps. There are still some issues to work out though. Blowing up apps across both screens involves making a huge window, and that sometimes cuts off content along the edges. It feels more like a Windows hack by ASUS instead of a completely polished feature. Another issue with the ScreenPad Plus is the huge difference in quality between that and the Zenbook Pro Duo's gorgeous 15.6-inch 4K OLED screen. The bigger display features HDR and all the functional benefits of OLED, like inky dark black levels and tremendous contrast. The ScreenPad Plus, though, is an LCD panel with a completely different color profile. Managing the brightness between the 2 displays separately is kind of annoying. The brightness keys only affect the main screen, and you have to pull up a separate setting for the ScreenPad Plus. And since the screens are so different, it makes it harder to match colors, which could be a pain for creative types. Beyond the novelty of having 2 screens, the Zenbook Pro Duo is also a powerhouse. Our review unit featured Intel's octa-core i9-9980 HK CPU, NVIDIA's RTX 2060 GPU, and 32GB of DDR4 RAM. It's built more for heavy-duty content creation than gaming, but you'll certainly be able to enjoy most modern games like Overwatch and Destiny 2 in 1080p and 1440p. In our benchmarks, it held its own against similar desktop replacements, like the Alienware Area 51M. The Pro Duo looks like a supersized version of ASUS's Ultra Portables, with a smooth metal case and polished edges. You've also got a slew of ports to choose from, including full-size HDMI, a USB-C Thunderbolt 3 socket, and 2 USB 3.1 Type-A connections. Given its productivity focus though, I'm surprised there isn't a built-in SD card reader. To fit the ScreenPad Plus, ASUS also had to move the keyboard to the bottom of the laptop, similar to its Zephyrus gaming notebooks. The trackpad is down there as well on the right side. That's an orientation that takes some getting used to. It at least gives you plenty of room for swiping around, unlike HP's Omen X2S. The full-size keyboard feels great to type on, with large key sizes and a generous 1.4mm of travel. The only major downside with the Zenbook Pro Duo is that it's pretty hefty. It weighs 5.5 pounds and measures almost an inch thick. That's a full pound heavier and almost twice as thick as the XPS 15. Dell's notebook doesn't have a second screen, of course, and it's limited to slower NVIDIA GTX 1650 graphics. But it would certainly be easier to lug around than the Zenbook. And it also has Intel's 9th gen CPUs. Apple's 15-inch MacBook Pro is also significantly lighter and sleeker at 4 pounds, but you'll be limited to Radeon Pro graphics. Not surprisingly, you won't get much battery life from the Pro Duo when using both screens. During my typical workflow, which involves hopping between dozens of browser tabs, Slack chats, Spotify, and image editing apps, it lasted around 3 to 4 hours. In our battery test, which involves looping in HD video, the laptop went for 3 hours and 50 minutes with both screens enabled. And with just the main screen, it went for 6.5 hours. The Zenbook Pro Duo may look a bit clunky, but ASUS proved that it's possible to stuff a decently sized secondary screen into a laptop. At Computex this year, we also saw a dual-screen gaming prototype from Intel, and I expect plenty of other PC makers to follow. My main takeaway here, the Zenbook Pro Duo means business. It's not a laptop for somebody who wants the lightest and sleekest machine possible. It's meant for power users who want to dedicate themselves to the portable dual screen life. Stay tuned to Engadget.com as we follow this wild trend of dual screen notebooks. And if you dug this video, throw us a like and subscribe to our channel.